what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 128, coming at you on a Friday evening, which is kind of a rare recording experience for us, Justin, but our listeners won't know that because it's going to get released Saturday per usual.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's nice to get, I don't want to say get it out of the way because I hate using that phrase because I'll even use it with the gym sometimes, like say, oh, get it out of the way because I enjoy doing it. But it's nice because with you and I, we kind of have this like coveted understanding or promise to ourselves and to others that we're going to do this every Saturday, release it every Saturday for as long as we're capable of doing.
Absolutely.
And when we do it on Saturdays, it's always, it's almost like you feel a little bit of a time crunch because, okay, it has to get in today. So we have to find, time to be able to do that versus, it's a little bit more of a comforting feeling when you have availability earlier in the week to do it. It's like, okay, like if we say we're going to record Saturday night, we're leaving a lot up to chance there because potentially something like disastrous could come up or, whatever, where we couldn't be able to get it in. So it's nice to just, have comfort in knowing that it'll be uploaded by tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely. This is that quote unquote promise that we made when we first started this, that we would never miss a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Has been relatively easy, but at the same point, there's been, I don't even know, several occasions where it was a daunting task, but I feel like I really enjoy the fact that we have made it a priority. I mean, heck, through COVID, we both have had COVID. I've had it twice, I think.
Yep.
I had a baby, I physically didn't have the baby, but we had a baby at my house, and through a loss of a loved one, there has been several things that probably the listeners and everybody else would give us a pass to say, okay, you can skip a week,
Mm-hmm.
but we figured it out.
Well, I think that part of it too is like the fact that for me, what it does is I think that it really shows prioritization and how, like, we always talk about, you and I, we've had, conversations ad nauseum at this point about it, how people say they don't have time for something. I don't have time for the gym. I don't have time for that. And really, you do have the time. It just needs to be allocated appropriately. You have the time you could allocate to doing this, but it's not a top priority. An example of this would be when I set that short-term goal to try to get a straddle split. And I was really, really close, but then over time, it wasn't important to me because like, I didn't really care if I got the straddle split or not. It was just to try to get to a short-term goal and set an example. Well, since it wasn't important to me, I stopped training for it and stretching as often as I should and working towards it. So that goal kind of fell by the wayside and I never got it because of that. Now, if you make a goal important to you, you're obviously, again, going to allocate that time that we talked about towards attaining that goal. So for us, I think being the model of consistency with this, it's really what it is it's kind of analogous to like working out. Now, I know that working out is and exercising and living a healthy lifestyle is more than once a week. It's not just a Saturday thing, but the time allotment is, can be under an hour. And with the exception of when we have guests on our episodes, our recording time is under an hour. So like, I think we can be the exemplars of that. Like, hey, look, it doesn't take that long to get something in. As long as that something is important to you, you can find a way to get it done regardless of circumstance. And I'll be honest, dude, like I thought for sure there was no way that we would make it this long without missing just because of things popping up. Like even little nuance that people wouldn't expect, like my computer breaks or the Wi-Fi's down and we, don't have, like something could have happened to this computer because everything we do is through here. So like, there's just such a possibility or like an assortment of possibilities of things that could go awry. So I'm very, very thankful that we made it this far and have been able to record over 125 episodes because we're 128 now where we haven't had any mishaps. And hopefully I'm not putting bad energy into the universe or jinxing us by saying that.
No, I echo that sentiment. It is crazy and it's cool. And it's just, I guess not to get sentimental or nothing, but we do it for the people that listen and the people that might listen.
Yeah.
So it's like I like that, calling it a commitment or being, once you make a commitment to do something, you do it. And that's just it. So no, it's good. So how was your week?
It was good.
Yeah.
Kind of par for the course. Like we always say, no news is good news. It's nice that the weather is starting to come back up. It was weird because I know we always talk about the weather, but just that's one of the talking points living in Ohio because it's so haphazard and sporadic and volatile at times. And we had some instances of nice weather, like this past weekend. It was 80 degrees and sunny. It was beautiful, up to 85 and sunny. And then on Monday we had a frost warning and it was freezing for 2 days. And then, because it went to below 30s or from 80s to 30 and below literally overnight. And it seems like it's starting to stabilize, and looking at the forecast ahead, it's starting to work its way up. So then that means Charlie's in a good mood because Charlie's outside, Charlie's exposed to sun, and being outside more is just, like the other day, for example, it was just so relaxing because I was able to go down to the park near my house and play hoops, shoot hoops and play basketball for 2 hours, which was a rarity because, again, generally don't have that allotment of time to be able to do that. But when I had some free time, I was able to go down to the park, and I went for a walk in the cemetery near my house, got some sun on me, and it felt great. So hopefully more of that to come, especially now with school being on the close, which kind of starts a transition into my summer schedule, which is a little bit more chaotic than my in-school schedule. But all good stuff. Busy's good because the way I see it is if I'm busy, that means I'm making out of money, or I'm making out of money. I'm staying out of trouble or making money, or hopefully both. So keeps me busy and doing things that I love. So not a bad week at all on my end.
So I was, kind of on the topic of, you said you got to play basketball for a while the other day when it was nice out, and that's awesome. But you mentioned that it's a rarity because you don't normally have a couple hours of free time at one time to do something like that. Yeah. So how do you feel about importance of prioritizing some of that free time to where you could just choose to do something?
It's necessary for sure from a mental health standpoint.
That's funny that was the reasoning, right? Because it's actually I believe it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's something that I think May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's something that we've been talking about at work a lot, is people need to prioritize their mental health. So I just thought that was kind of funny that, not funny, but coincidental, right? That was your reasoning, right?
Well, for me, it ebbs and flows in terms of finding time for myself, because I'll do that for a period of time where I will make sure that I take time for myself for self-improvement or leisure or family or whatever. And I feel good. And then for being a creature of habit, I continue to find my way back into work and find my way back into neglecting myself. So it's very, very hard for me to keep myself a consistent priority. And I know that I need to, and I want to. It's almost like that, again, that creature of habit resurrects itself. And I inevitably turn back to forgetting about taking time for myself and my mental health. And then it's almost like an abusive relationship with my own mind, where I always take time off, but it would be, what the analogy is, man. It's like this, like how we always talk about one of the things that I'm pretty good at, and you have started to get good at now that you have more years of training under your belt, is taking time off right before you have no choice. Like,
before it's actually time,
before there's an injury or something that makes you, like, right before you're forced to take time off. You want to know when to take time off right before it's forced upon you because of an injury, or you're way too overtrained or underslept or whatever. So for me, my mental health is like that. I will push with work and responsibilities and things that I need to get done, and trying to grow my brand and all these things. And then I will have some sort of mental breakdown that is just a manifestation of all the stress and all the buildup. And then I'm forced to take time off, where it'd be nice if I could be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive. And I can preemptively have the foresight of seeing those things coming my way. And I can just say, okay, I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit stressed, and I'll take time off. Now, you know what, man? I shouldn't say that I need the foresight to see those, because I know they're coming. I just ignore them. I see the warning signs. I just say, okay, well, I just got to finish this week. Or, okay, yeah.
Don't we all though?
I think so, to a degree.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I got one more client. I can fit one more client in this day. Oh yeah, sure. I can take one more online client for this month, or whatever it is. I just one more that I can push through. And then the inevitable, I don't want to overemphasize or be hyperbolic with my explanations of calling it a mental breakdown, because I've had mental breakdowns, and I shouldn't say that I have a breakdown necessarily, but the point where I reach a little bit of an internal tipping point and I need to take time for myself. Again, I wish that I could pay attention to the warning signs and learn to not always go through the wall, maybe stop before I ram headfirst into it, I guess is the way to phrase it.
Right. And that's something that I have honestly been trying to prioritize myself, and quite honestly have recently hit that wall. And I know what you mean by when you're saying like it's not a mental break. Like it's not a complete snap, but it's where you hit that wall and you start to, I don't know, for me anyways, I start to get snippety, and that's totally not like me. Like I'm like non-confrontational. So when I start to get confrontational, I know, hey man, something's going on. You got to take a second and reorganize my thoughts and figure out where the disconnect is, because I don't do that. Like I don't get confrontational, I guess is the way. So, and I actually have recently this week had that happen. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, because it was like, how do you I guess, what is the tip, right? How do you give somebody a tip to avoid that?
Yeah. And I don't know.
That's a hard one.
I think it's individually dependent, because you think about like training, for example, and exercise. Everybody has unique warning signs where they know they're starting to get on the verge. So like for me, my central nervous system, I can tell when I need a break because of my sleep patterns. If I start to feel more tired throughout the day, I automatically know that it may not just be my sleep itself, but the quality of sleep that is affected potentially by my nervous system, which could stem from training too much. Because right. Knowing when to take time off from strength training, like if you're an athlete who lifts weights, a way to know when to take off from that it's not just about, oh, my muscles are sore, I need to take off. There's a lot of other signs and symptoms that can point to it being time to pump the brakes a little bit. So for everybody, it's different. Like for me, in terms of like, again, with exercise and strength training, one of the specifics that I get is my hips. For whatever reason, when I'm a little bit overtrained, especially from the lower body perspective, is my hips get real tight and achy. Nothing major. And it's probably predicated on my anatomy or just my hip morphology, the structure of my hips. But when I take like heavy load and I'm squatting a little bit too often or too much or whatever, they start to hurt. So I know that's kind of a warning sign to taper back. So I think that everybody's like mental health break, when they're starting to get to that point, they'll know based on their own experiences. But really what it boils down to is you just have to be a self-assessing person. Like try to actively figure out on your own what your own personal cues are, like, or your warning signs. Like, what are my warning signs that I'm stressed out? Because I guarantee you that other people are cognizant of those, maybe even before you are. So like for you, for example, let's say you were completely like you're completely aloof to what your signs are of you being overworked or overstressed or whatever. I bet you if you had no clue what those are and you asked your wife, she would know, because she sees the character traits and she would understand the habits that rise and say, oh, well, every time Justin starts to get cranky and he's overstressed at work, he's really, really short with me. Or he has a little bit of a shorter fuse in terms of temperament, or, he stress eats or he under eats or whatever. So like, I feel like it may be beneficial to you if somebody's trying to figure that out. So maybe one of our listeners is in that type of predicament. Maybe you can ask someone that you spend the most time around, because I bet somebody might be able to point you in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with that. And because I actually turned to that several years ago, when a similar instance, it happens. It comes around about, I don't know, every 5-6 months. I will go hard at whatever it is I'm doing for too long. And my wife, it's ironic. My wife will see it coming before I do. But I urge people to do exactly what you're saying. You know, source out your close friends or your significant other or a parent or anybody that's really close to you, even if it's a coworker. But be cognizant that you might get mad if they start to tell you that. You know what I mean? Like if they start to tell you, yeah, you might have a adverse reaction immediately. So if you're asking for it, you can't get mad at them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're saying, hey, be honest with me, that's like, you know, I guess not to turn the story around too much, but when I was started into this journey for weight loss, one of the things I told my people, and anybody that was around me, that if they see me slipping, to not sugarcoat it, to call a spade. What are you doing, dude? And I had to be okay with that, because if they didn't, I wouldn't even recognize it, because that was my crutch. But if the first time they did it, if I would get mad about it, they would never do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those things. Like
part of it, man. Maybe like that in and of itself is a sign, if that's what you're suggesting, where you take constructive criticism and feedback very well, but when that starts to happen and you get dismissive of it, or even worse, resentful or combative with it, then maybe that's a sign right there that maybe that's one of your things. Like, yeah, I take feedback and criticism from people very well, but when I'm overworked, overstressed, and emotionally not in a good place, and someone tries to give me that same feedback that they would normally give and I would normally welcome with open arms, maybe I start being argumentative and confrontational with them and say, hey, no, I'm not, you know what I mean? Maybe that is a sign in and of itself, coincidentally.
Yeah, I think it is, because, you got to self-assess. As much as you want everybody else to assess, you got to self-assess as well.
Mine is kind of a coincidental thing where I do have some social triggers that show when I'm getting stressed. And it's not confrontation. In fact, it's the avoidance of confrontation. Not that I'm saying when I'm in a good mind state that I am confrontational, but when I'm in a bad mind state, I know that I will turn to confrontation. So what I do is to avoid that, instead of fixing the problem, I just treat the symptom. Instead of fixing that I'm heading in a mental health disaster and I'm going to blow up and have a lot of confrontation, instead of fixing it, I just put a Band-Aid over it by trying to ignore people. So like, I'll be very, very quiet. I'll keep to myself. Not rude with people by any means, but just not social, not energetic, not like jubilant like I like to be, or I'm not high energy. Like I kind of shut down and I'm very short. Again, not to be rude to people, but sometimes I'm recognizing that the only thing that I can do to not blow up on people that don't deserve to be blow up on is just ignore them. Kind of like the old cliche, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Well, sometimes mentally I get to that point where I cannot say anything nice, so I'm just going to shut up and try to power my way through this without being mean to anybody that doesn't deserve being mean to.
Right. And I'm kind of the same way. You guys, my training partners, probably recognize it more than I do, because I don't typically ever use headphones at the gym anymore.
Yeah, me neither. I hate it now.
Right. But there's times when you've probably recognized it, that I'm just not quite myself. I'm not quite to the point where I need to take a day off because of it, but I'm wearing headphones.
Mm-hmm.
And I just you said that, and it made me think about it, because like, when I'm at home, I don't train with headphones on, and I could, and it would make sense. Yep. But a couple of different times during the period the last 2 weeks when I did train at home, when I was sick, I wore headphones because I was in my mind. I was in my mind, just like mad at myself because I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't doing the things I needed to do, but I couldn't because I was sick. that day I felt good. So I went to the basement and worked out, but I wore headphones. So like, I didn't even recognize that was a trigger or not a trigger, but a subconscious response.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you see it with even some of our training partners. Like I know Chad's the same way. When he's like stressed with work and everything, he'll come to the gym with us and still get the work in, but he'll put his headphones in and won't be very talkative and stuff. And I kind of like, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty receptive to nonverbal cueing with people, like body language and demeanor and stuff. And so I know that when him or someone else is like that, I just don't talk to him. I just leave him alone. Like, hey man, we can still get good work in. I know we're normally hooting and hollering and yelling and having a good time, but we can still get some work in. You're in a bad mood, put your headphones in. You're in a bad mood, put your head down. Okay, I'll follow suit. We'll all be quiet, but we'll just put it in. And by next week, we'll all be laughing and having a good time again. It is what it is.
That is it. Something
you said there, man, kind of triggered a side conversation that's going to be changing pace a little bit. So I think we should go to commercial break first. And then I'll kind of change tangents on us a little bit, just because, again, something you said there, just in passing, very, very brief, kind of sparked an idea in my mind of something that I'd like to talk about. So let's go to a quick commercial break and we'll talk more about that question when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. Okay, Justin, prior to the break, we were talking a lot about when you meet that point or when you're at that level of mental exhaustion. How do you know when's time to de-stress and unwind and dedicate or some time to yourself or whatever? And one of the things you mentioned, I said, caused an interesting question that I wanted to bring up just because I thought it was a unique change of pace here per the conversation we were having. You said that you no longer use headphones in the gym.
Correct.
And I said, yeah, I'm the same way. I never do. I actually can't wear headphones in the gym anymore, ever. Like, it's like a weird thing. Like, even when I go to gyms that aren't my gym where I'm training alone. So like at my gym, I have control over the auxiliary cord and what music is being played. And when I go to other gyms, even if I'm by myself with no control, it doesn't matter what's playing. I usually don't wear headphones ever. And my question to you is, over the years of training, because you've had quite a big sample size at this juncture where you've been in this lifestyle, obviously not as long as I have, just because you didn't get started until a later point. What are some of the things that you have gone a full 180 on, either training philosophies or little habits that you have in the gym that you have done a complete 180 on? Because wearing headphones, not wearing headphones, some people just kind of like, yeah, I can or I can't. But mine has been a complete turnaround to where I could never lift if I didn't have headphones before. Like, it would be impossible. Like, there's no way. Like, if there had been times during college or whatever where I'd forgotten my headphones and I would not be able to lift. Like, I would just have to scrap the day. Or if my iPod at the time was dead, like, or my MP3 player or whatever, if it was dead, it's like, all right, well, SOL, now I can't lift. Whereas now it's the opposite. Like I just mentioned, I can't ever put headphones in. Like, I need the environment and I need to just be free of that stuff, like in my ears, blaring music. Like, I don't mind the loud music because I kind of do that at the gym anyway, but I just couldn't have that communication if necessary with people like my spotters and my training partners and stuff. So off the top of your head, just for conversational sake, do you have anything that you've gone a full 180 on? And it can be anything. It can be in terms of like training philosophies or even training styles, things you used to love to do in the gym that now you hate, and other things you hated that now you've fallen in love with. Because I just off the top of my head right now, I have a couple like thought bubbles that are starting to point up. It's like a cartoon where they're just like pop, 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 pop. popping up in my head, and I'm starting to think of things like, oh yeah, I used to love that, now I hate it or whatever. So do you have anything just immediately that kind of sparks in your brain right now?
Kind of the reverse, right? I used to hate a lot of these things, and now I love to do them. If that makes sense. So
yeah, so it could be. I think I might have phrased that question wrong. It could be either things that you love that now you hate, but things that you hate that now you love. Because I have both of those, honestly.
I actually do too. Now that you said it like that, now I think I have at least two things, probably more than that. And as we start talking, I'll probably come up with more. So the one is squatting.
Yes.
My whole life, even when I was younger and in football and at high school and wrestling, just going to the gym and lifting for sports, I hated to squat.
Yep.
I absolutely hated it. And I always thought it was because I didn't like putting the bar on the base of my neck. I felt like it hurt my spine, right? So for years, I wouldn't squat. And then I watched a YouTube video in between when I started and then now that showed like these guys had the bar way low in their back, right?
Yeah.
So when I started back to the gym this time, when I started coming to a physical gym with you guys this time, it was like we came in, we did legs or our back one day and then went right into our leg day. That was the rotation when I jumped in. And halfway through our squats, Chad said, well, why do you have the bar so low? I think it was Chad. It might have been you. I'm not sure. But why do you have the bar so low on your back? And I explained that I thought that was more comfortable. So I finished the workout like that. And then the next leg day, I was like, heck with it, because it sucked. I had no depth and I couldn't get much weight. So the next week I put it on my shoulders on the base of my neck and it didn't hurt anymore. Like it was like almost like I learned how to do it overnight. So now I love squatting. It's a love-hate relationship. Obviously, I hate to sore for 3 days afterwards, but I love leg day because it's one of the areas where now I'm good at it.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that in terms of squatting. Squatting was definitely one of the ones that, not that I ever hated it, but it's now by far my favorite lift and I've fallen in love with just because over the years, I have gone through periods of strength gain and a little bit of strength loss, obviously, just because of life circumstance, but then also because of competing. Like when you're getting ready for a bodybuilding show, strength is still trying to be maintained, but it really takes a backseat to literally kind of every other aspect of training. And then, in the off season, you catch back up in terms of strength progression. But I feel like my squat, while it hasn't progressed in weight linearly, it has constantly every year gotten better. Like the technique and the form and my control and my bracing and just all those little tiny things that go into having a quality squat, those have all gotten better. So in turn, I've enjoyed it more. And then I can actually think of a lift on the contrary that I used to love and do almost borderline obsessively that I have now, relegated to doing maybe once a month at best. And that's deadlifting.
I was going to say, I bet you I can guess what that is.
Yeah, I used to. So when we were in college and even when I was in high school, it was one of those lifts that I kind of performed pretty well from a technique perspective. Like my first couple times deadlifting, the guy I was working with at the time was a wrestling coach at our school. And he had kind of like a powerlifting club in my high school. And yeah, I was doing it at football as well, getting ready for football as a young kid. And I was kind of like had that little bit of inclination to doing it well from the beginning. Like, geez, like, man, right. You're really good at this thing. Like your deadlift is awesome. Like you could be really good. Your form's perfect. I didn't even have to really teach you much. So anyway, I kind of stuck with it. And then in college, because I was good at it and I liked it, we would do it all the time. And it was completely irresponsible in terms of like the volume and frequency. Like we would deadlift 3 times a week and it wasn't even like a program that was followed like strategically. Like we would honestly go into the gym and we would work up by singles as heavy as we can, where this was honestly how we would do it. Minimal warm up in terms of mobility because you're in college and you don't need mobility, of course. And we would go like 135 for a single. and then 185 for a single, and then 225 for one, and 315 for one, and 365 for one, and 405 for one, and 455 for one, and 495 for one, and then 515 for one, and 555 for one. And we just work up until we couldn't do any more weight. And we would do that 3 times a week, like completely irresponsible and definitely not a good strategy for maintaining that. Like that's not a sustainable practice. And then after that, we would do volume work. So, when I was in college, there were times when at 181, which was like a competitive weight class for powerlifting, I was pulling over 600, 635, I think at 180 was my best pull. And then I put on even more body weight and was well over 200 pounds at one point and was still pulling. I didn't get much strength past that though. So that was probably my most impressive pull. But anyway, after we would do our singles and our heavy work, then we would just go back down and work volume. So we'd do like 405 or 315 for 5 sets, as many reps as we could. Like there were times we do 405 for 20, which is outrageous now that I think back on that. Being old and brittle, I can't imagine like the reality that I used to do that. And now as I've gotten older, I've just, for whatever reason, shied away from that. Maybe I'm a little bit more intelligent. I guess my brain is bigger than my muscles at this point. And I hardly ever do anything ridiculous in terms of deadlifting anymore. So that's kind of something that I don't want to say I've hated, but I've just shied away from in recent years for sure.
Right. Absolutely. And in by proxy, so have I. And actually, I feel better because of it.
Yes. Yeah.
My lower, I don't have any lower back issues. And my issues with the deadlift are just predicated off of form and body habitus that gets in the way of form. But yeah. So another like complete 180 in the gym that I realized that I have made now that you've asked, right, would be I used to love spinning. Like when I was at our gym that we're at now, the first time I'd spin 3-4 times a week, maybe even more. And it would be like 40-45 minutes after an hour and a half workout or before. And now I don't even have no desire to go in that room. Not that I don't want to cycle, because I still have the desire to do a triathlon or an Ironman and do the cycling portion, but sitting and spinning and looking at a white wall stationary, I don't have no desire to do it.
Yeah.
At all.
Mine's actually a little bit of the opposite. I could kind of go down that route as well and say that I'm done overstating the negatives of cardio. So when someone hears that, they say, what do you mean? How can cardio be negative? Why would you say that cardio is bad? It's never that I stated that cardio was a negative or a bad thing, but I was always one of those meatheads that was worried that extra cardio would hurt my strength and my growth process. So if I'm strength training and my main goal is size as a bodybuilder, I didn't want to do cardio because I'd like burn off all my muscle. Whereas the bigger I had gotten, like even at my biggest, I was probably doing the most amount of cardio in terms of like recreational cardio. Like I was playing pickup basketball and going on runs and, doing obstacle course races as of late and all that stuff. And never once has it hindered my strength or my growth process.
Right. And that's, I've never been afraid of cardio, so to speak, or thought it was going to negatively affect my gains. Right. But I don't have the same, obviously our stories are completely different. So, from where I was, my standpoint was there is no amount of cardio outside of injury that could hurt me.
Yeah.
But, and I still have that belief. I'm trying to figure out time constraints at this point. How am I able to add it back in, which I think I figured out. Because now I'm to the point where I don't want to sacrifice my gym time, like my actual strength training time, because that's what I enjoy. I ran a few times in the last 6 months, and I definitely still enjoy running, but I really, really enjoy lifting. So, it's one of those balancing acts where I got to figure out where that balance works and how many days or how much cardio or what do I got to do? How do I do it? And we're working on it. I'm figuring it out, and I say we're working on it is I bounce my ideas off of you, obviously. So, but yeah, I could agree with that, the cardio thing for sure.
Don't you think that that's part of the enjoyment of the process is the figuring out the puzzle pieces, though? Like, as frustrating as it is because you'll never get the formula perfect. But I feel like there's a lore in that, and there's an attractiveness in the sense that the product is always unfinished and we're always trying to work to find that, and that's probably a microcosm of the big picture where with life, like, you're constantly trying to figure things out. You're constantly trying to tweak your schedule. You're constantly trying to have self-improvement and have more money and build a bigger training brand or whatever. I just feel like the process, I know it's corny, but the process is what keeps us coming back, because if the end product was attainable, then I think life would be boring.
I think you're right. And that's another thing that I think has 180'd for me too. So when I first walked into the gym we go to, I was literally at the best of the lowest of my life. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
I know
I was right
there, so I get it.
Yeah. I was on the brink. I was having the best time that I've ever had at the lowest point in my life. And then I walked into the gym and I had no idea what to do.
Yep.
And I almost didn't keep doing it. I almost didn't stay because I went for like 4 days in a row and moseyed around and kind of, didn't know exactly what was going on. And then Randy, the owner of our gym, gave me my workout that I had bought. I bought a program from him. It was 10 weeks long and it gave me purpose.
Yeah.
So at that point, I didn't like the process. I didn't like the process of figuring it out. And then now I like going to the gym with minimal guidance. We have minimal, like, we don't have like a strict set. We're going to do this, and this for this many reps and this many sets. We know the day. We know it's a push day or a pull day or a leg day or an arm day, but we don't have that strict guideline that I thought I had to have. And for a long time, until recently, I've always been that way. Like, that was what I learned. That was the way I was successful. And that was the only thing I could do. Even if I was writing my own workout, I'd write it out for like a month at a time in a book, and I would just follow page by page.
Yep.
So, but now I do enjoy the process. I do enjoy finding the motions or the movements or a specific bar to do this lift, or, I like that process of failing and succeeding and failing and succeeding. And I think that I don't think I'll ever not like it now, but before I was not a big fan of it at all.
Yeah. I kind of went to logging nothing to logging everything obsessively to logging things that needed to be logged and allowing the accessory work to be fun and enjoyable and non-stressful in terms of obsessing over the sets.
And I know, right. And I know that we have always talked about, we keep a notebook and we log everything we do. That's another change that's happened, right? So I did that. I always had a notebook, and that's always, the notebook's still in my gym bag. I have it. I don't use it because now I have the ability to remember.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes from consistency. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I did last workout.
Yep.
I know that next week on leg day, I have to try to go with that new bar, and with the depth that I'm at, I have to try to get 300 because we were at 285 last week.
Yes.
Like, and I'll never forget it. I won't forget it. I don't think I'll ever have to write it down until I get old and can't remember. So yeah, I guess that's another change.
I think that's something that will always be tweaking. And that's something that's sure. like with the log book, there's a lot of importance to it, but then you cannot also become completely obsessive over it.
And I think that's the reason why I moved away from it, because I was I got on my own nerves, to be honest.
Mhm.
Like completely got on my own nerves because I couldn't stop obsessing about what that number I had to, and now we know what our effort level is, and we just do that.
Yes. 100%.
Like, and some people are probably like, what in the heck are they talking about? But it makes sense. Like, it doesn't, I guess it's not even applicable. It's applicable to everything, even outside the gym. Like, once you hone in on what you're doing to an extent, anyways, I'm not saying that I'm, Ronnie Coleman good at the gym. I'm not, that's not what I'm trying to say. But like, once you get an idea of or a level of expertise of whatever your craft is.
And it doesn't even have to be expertise. It just could be competency.
Yeah, I guess that's a better word. Yeah, because expertise.
You bringing this up, man, that just goes right back to the overreaching theme of the episode here. Unintentionally, just seems to be like, know thyself, like know yourself better. Because if you know yourself better, you'll understand what your triggers are, when you're headed for a mental breakdown, when you need time off from the gym, what you need to do while you're at the gym, how to log stuff if you need this type of training or that type of training. So I think that one of the most important pillars of success that you and I have spoke about, that we've kind of understood, and a lot of our guests in the past have understood, is being self-assessing. No one can know you better than you. If other people know your habits a little bit better, then you got some learning to do.
Right. I agree with that. That makes me think of a quote, and I can't for the life of me remember who said it, but and I'm probably going to botch it. So, but change is inevitable, but personal growth is a choice.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to change as we go along. We have to choose to get better.
And I think
we got to make that choice.
I've always said that to people about how there's no homeostasis. Excuse me, your body's always trying to get to homeostasis. But there's no, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no consistency in the fact of staying the same. Like, because I've always said that even if you are not progressing, but you're not getting worse, you're still getting older. So time is always working against you then too. So there's no consistency. It's either you're getting better or you're getting worse. It's never stagnation. So yeah, things are changing, but it's your ability to choose whether you adapt and whether you progress or whether you fall backwards.
Right. I had to Google it. So Bob Proctor was a Canadian self-help author and a lecturer. And I read that in a book, and now I can't remember the book I read that he did. I listened, or you know what? I think Jocko might have talked about him in one of his episodes or something. But yeah, and that quote it stuck with me. Like, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because we're gonna go through changes in our training or our work or our relationships, but and that's something we don't have any control over, but we do have control over growth and maturity.
Yes, for sure. Well, man, I think that's a great place to wrap it up for the week. Had a lot of good talking points and kind of did a complete 180. And it's funny because I feel like every time we do episodes where we kind of free fall or free ball in terms of like our topics and we kind of flow, it always seems to be interconnected and work our way back to the original topic that we started with. So kind of like the podcast always comes full circle. All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 128. As always, we appreciate your listenership and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and take it all. I'm born to be untamable, go right to the edge and never fall. Born with the fire, I'm taking it higher. Unshakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and take it all.